First of all, thank you all for being here. This week, the Missouri Senate passed House Joint Resolution 173 and 174 to put more money back in the pockets of hardworking Missouri families across our state. Missouri needs tax reform to retain and attract small businesses, to keep families here in Missouri, and to grow our economy. Eliminating the individual income tax represents the largest middle-class tax cut in the state's history. Right now, every working family has a portion of their paycheck withheld before they even have a chance to see it or spend it. This legislation begins the process of eliminating that burden and puts more money back in the pockets of Missouri families by keeping more of what they earn. Missouri now has the opportunity to join a growing number of states that have eliminated the state income tax. These states are seeing increased competition for jobs, residents, and investment. This approach to tax reform positions Missouri to compete for generations to come, and we are proud of the work that Senate Republicans did to pass this important legislation last night. With that, I would like to introduce the sponsor of the Senate Joint Resolution, Senator Trent, to speak more about the measure and to answer any questions.
So the legislation that was passed out of the Senate last night requires the General Assembly to enact legislation to eliminate the income tax, and once eliminated, that tax would no longer be able to be reimposed without an additional constitutional amendment. It creates a 5-year window to expand the transaction-based tax base, but only for the purpose of reducing and eliminating the income tax. There are numerous guardrails in the legislation to ensure that this is a revenue-neutral measure when fully implemented, and it's not a tax increase on the people of Missouri. Additionally, local subdivisions, your local governments, they will also have an expanded sales tax base that falls in line with what the General Assembly chooses to do. They will be required to have a one-time rollback of their levies so that we have a revenue-neutral impact at the local level as well. When they roll those levies back, there's options that they can exercise on what they do with that windfall money. They can either lower their overall sales tax rates, they can lower real or residential property tax rates, lower personal property tax rates, or in cities that have an earnings tax, they may use that money to reduce their or eliminate their earnings tax. Additionally, there are protections for local schools that whatever rollbacks occur should not impact local school funding. The income tax is one of the most destructive forms of taxation. It does far more damage to the economy than just the amount of money that it extracts from the economy. It discourages people from being productive, from going out and earning more money. It does nothing to build capital investment. It does nothing to draw investment into the state. Eliminating the income tax will supercharge Missouri's economy much in the same way that it has supercharged other economies around the country in states that do not have an income tax. Appreciate everyone being here, and yes, we'd be happy to answer questions.
So a similar question that the Democrats, so the Senate version gets rid of the automatic reduction of the income tax. Why was that something you were willing to let go in the Senate version?
Well, so the version that's passed requires the General Assembly to still use the trigger-based system when it implements the language, should the people give us the permission to do so. I think the trigger-based system has shown a great deal of functionality over the last decade or so in which it has been used. Missouri has had around $1.8 billion in permanent income tax reduction in that time period using the trigger-based system. And during that time period, I would also hasten to add the revenue into the state has gone up by over $4.7 billion, which tells me two things. One, that we were overtaxed, and two, that the income tax truly is an anchor on the economy.
Yeah, but again, you've got rid of the automatic portion. The lawmakers would have to do that. Why make that change? Or why agree to that change?
Well, the automatic change that was in the bills that was passed by the House was a very had a very long runway in which to occur. 30 years, maybe even longer than that. And while it still would be great policy to eliminate the income tax 30 years from now or 50 years from now, much of the benefit that we're going to derive from this policy economically would not occur on a time frame that would be meaningful to the public. So doing it quickly is more important to the overall policy goal here.
Senator Trent, were Republicans ready to use the PQ to get this passed last night?
Well, I think anytime you're going to use the previous question, that is a decision that gets made at the time when, that decision has to be made. And so to my knowledge, there was no discussion of PQ last night, but, those process, well, not by me.
Okay. And were you surprised by Democrats not even saying 10 words against it on the floor?
Oh, at this point, very little surprises me.
Was that part of the negotiation that they wouldn't talk?
I always hope that when you're negotiating with someone in good faith and you eventually reach the right point on a proposal, that both sides can stand down from having to.
Why was it a good idea to bring it up on most Missourians?
I think the Missouri General Assembly works late a lot of times. This is a process that's been ongoing for weeks and months at this point. It has had robust public debate both inside the General Assembly and committees. It's had robust debate on the airwaves, on radio shows. This is a policy I worked on last year. I toured the state. I went to cities all across Missouri and held town halls about this policy. The timing of when it happened, happened to be late this time, but there's nothing magical about that timing. As soon as we reached a point where we felt we could bring it to the floor to pass it, we walked out and did that. If that had been noon, we would have done it then. If that had been 3 a.m., we would have done it then. If that had been 9 in the morning, we would have done it then. The time was insignificant.
Senator Lukemeyer, we've seen the Republican leadership punish dissident Republicans before, such as Senator Huff when he lost the appropriations chair last year. Will Senator Nicola or Senator Moon feel the heat for being on the other side?
I have no insight into that.
Ask Senator Lukemeyer.
Yeah.
Floor leader.
No,
No?
I don't think so.
No changes in committee assignments or anything?
Well, first of all, that is a decision for the pro tem, obviously, but no. Cindy has given no indication that would be her intent. On the earlier question that you asked as to whether there was ever a threat that was communicated by the Majority Caucus to the Minority Caucus for a PQ, there was not. And in terms of the negotiations, once we got to the floor, the only agreement was that there would not be a filibuster. There was no agreement that nobody was going to not speak on the legislation on the floor.
Did you find it notable that 3 of your party members did speak somewhat at length against the legislation and voted against it as well?
No, I don't begrudge anybody. Every member is elected by 181,000 of their constituents to represent their district. I don't begrudge anybody for how they vote, and certainly don't begrudge any member of the Senate for speaking their mind on the floor. That's their right to do.
In, let's just say 4 years, could the reconfigured Senate and House just drop this plan and say we're not doing it, leaving things, sort of unfinished? Is that a concern?
So the language of the proposal says that the General Assembly shall implement language. The enforceability of that, I think, is not absolute. So there's probably an avenue in which that could happen. But I think that if the people of Missouri vote to authorize this proposal to move forward, I think that the pressure to do something and to do something in lines with this proposal are going to be very high.
Thank you.
Thank you.